What's up, guys? It's Coach Gaglione here. There's another edition of the Powerlifting with the People podcast. I'm your host, Coach Gaglione, and I've been involved with powerlifting and strength coaching for over 19 years. Did my first meet back in 2006. Since then, I've had a lot of success as a coach and, a little bit of success as a lifter as well. First and only known man to squat 800 pounds in 6 different weight classes. I've totaled elite and equipped in 5 different weight categories. I've totaled 2,000 or more in 2 different weight classes, and then a total of 2,100 in 2 weight classes as well. So let's just get right into it. I want to kind of use this as a little bit of a solo episode, a buffer podcast, if you will. I'm going to try to get some more guests on for you guys so you don't have to hear me yapping all the time. We've had a lot of great success this past year. I want to kind of, again, highlight some updates. The team has been doing really well in general. Again, for those that are not familiar, we have our original location, Farmingdale HQ, at the Gaglione Strength Farmingdale, which is the true Strong Island, New York powerlifting gym. We've had that open since 2011. I've been coaching people in some capacity since 2006. And as those wrestlers and football players started to kind of graduate, that was kind of where I got my start. Our powerlifting team was formed. And since then, we've helped over 100 lifters get nationally ranked top 50 in their weight class and division. Most recently, we've had some other kind of notable things kind of happen. Charlie's going crazy if you hear him. Apologies there. So we've had Martin McCabe. So Martin was doing really well. He's just been on the program just for like a few months, like I guess maybe like four months or so on a structured program with us with online coaching. Got to handle his second meet in person, and then with the help of Eugene. Eugene's a good buddy of mine. Eugene actually, I believe, did his first meet. I could be wrong, but it was one of his first kind of big meets at the Arnold. So when I told 2,100 pounds for the first time, Eugene was kind of just getting started. He's a 2,000 pound raw guy, really nice guy. He's gigantic, really strong, really humble. And we kind of find out a lot of those guys are. So it's great to see him give back. It's great to see him help out Martin. Martin's, 19 years old. He's going to age out into the junior division in the next couple of weeks. So we wanted to kind of get one more meet under his belt. Not something I typically like to do, but Martin had the chance to do something special. He has an American and all-time world record teenage deadlift in the 242 class. He has American record deadlift, so regardless of all weight classes, American record deadlift in the 308 class, and now an American record deadlift with 804, 365 kilos. So that's the heaviest deadlift of all time. And one of the things that's really cool about Martin, he shares a common trait with Larry outside of his amazing strength. Martin was able to take a world record, I should say an American record technically, because there is a crazy guy, the non-so guy in Britain, done a little bit more on the stiff bar, which is crazy. But anyways, Martin was able to take a record from Eric Lillibridge, which is no, that's not no matter what age group or not, teenage or not, open or not, taking a record from a Lillibridge is a feat. So Eric's one of the greatest of all time, one of the pioneers of Raw. So yeah, so I think that's pretty cool. So 804 deadlift, it's an amazing deadlift no matter what your age, but especially as a teenager, that's some really special stuff. So I believe that he's the first teenager to have 3 American records in 3 different weight classes simultaneously. And he's certainly the first person to do it. 3 American records in his first 3 contests. So obviously, like maybe there was some strategy there. I don't know, but he's a special athlete, and I'm excited. I'm really hoping that he sticks with the program and sticks with our team long term, because I do believe that he could be the second coming of Larry Wheels if he puts his mind to it. Now that I have a little bit more knowledge on how to handle those types of athletes and just have a handle on the long-term plays. That's one of the benefits of someone like myself who's got about 20 years of experience. I have over 20 years of lifting experience. Again, did my first meet back in 2006. And up until like 2023, I was able to still make steady progress on my total, and then like my dot scores and stuff like that. Last year, I did hit an all-time bench PR, even though I was technically retired. I did hit another 2,100 total, but I did kind of had to, put on a lot of body weight. So I'm definitely kind of past my prime, and I hate saying that, but um, focusing on family stuff, marriage, just trying to do the best I can to kind of spread the message of strength. So with that being said, I still think it's important to have goals. I tried to kind of just exercise for like a period of time, and that just didn't really jive with me mentally. I have been kind of dealing with some health issues. I have been dealing with stress. That's been really hard. I did have some success with the sugar diet, did that for about a month. lost a little bit over 20 pounds. I went on an extended diet break. This is kind of what happens. We always say like taking a break is just quitting slow. So I kind of got like a little crazy, but part of that was I was supposed to do like this kind of side quest where I was going to do a raw squat. It's called it's basically a variation of strength lifting, but with a partner. So a raw walked out squat with a stiff bar, strict overhead press, standing press, I should say, and then a stiff bar conventional deadlift. So that's kind of so that meet ended up being canceled, unfortunately. So my side quest was cut short. The good news with that is I can kind of start to kind of get my health a little bit more back in check. Because the strict curl, like your body weight isn't as much of a factor. I still want to kind of perform well on those particular workouts, but I'm not just worried, especially with my squat. I was aiming for like a 585, 600 pound raw squat and heels, which would have been an all-time PR. I've never done more than 585. I did 585, I believe, for like I said, a five when I was squatting around 705 pounds in just knee sleeves. And again, just keep in mind too, I've never really truly, outside of like my first couple of years where I was building a foundation, I never really committed to raw lifting. I kind of dabbled in it just to kind of show people like what I could do and also just for my own knowledge. But I believe in knee wraps, I could have squatted over 800 pounds raw if I committed to it. I believe that, and again, this is coming from someone, again, I squatted 1,000 pounds in training. I squatted 900 in a suit. But a lot of people don't also know, like I squatted 850 in just a pair of loose briefs and loose knee wraps. I was doing good morning. So like kind of like I wasn't quite to the same level like as Dave Tate and Jim Wundler, where they were only kind of putting their gear on supposedly in the early days, just like when they got to the meet. But we did a lot of our max effort training raw. We did a lot of our training raw. It was just more variations to kind of build weak points and to teach you how to strain. But anyways, that's neither here nor there. But it's just to say that strong is strong. I think a lot of people to kind of don't really understand equipped lifting. They don't understand kind of knee wrap lifting. It's like, apples to oranges. It's like a bicycle race versus a race on foot. They're both races. They're just different, and they can be appreciated. And they still kind of take a lot of strength. I do think that powerlifting, raw powerlifting, and like knee sleeves, or even bare knees, truthfully, that's kind of like how the GPC does it. So, just with that being said, just a couple of quick announcements for those that we are going to be kind of involved with the RPS Nationals, and next year as well. It's going to be the first week in June. We'll definitely get Jamie Mott on to talk about that. We're looking to also add strict curl to that. So right now, kind of outside of this, kind of doing like a fun like shrimp eating contest. It's not necessarily like a lifting related, but that's kind of just like a little bit of a side quest I thought would be kind of fun. Still keeping the fat low, but just something kind of fun. I'm just trying to like kind of get out there and meet people in the community. That's why I was kind of upset about this side quest being canceled. Because it would have been an opportunity just to kind of showcase some of my skills, although I wouldn't have had like anything noteworthy for myself if I was still able to like squat, 6 plates or more, maybe overhead press 2 plates or more. It's still like very good. So again, me at like a not so great strength level is still quite impressive. I kind of mentioned before, if you're a man, and I understand that there's women doing this now, but if you're like a 3, 4, 5 guy, that's pretty darn strong. A 315 bench, a 400-pound squat, a 500-pound deadlift. It's pretty fantastic. For a woman, average woman, if you're kind of pulling, over, maybe if you're doing 3 plates on a deadlift, 1 plate on a bench, 2 plates on a squat, you're doing really good. I think sometimes it gets twisted, and like I'm fortunate that I kind of grew up like kind of before the raw boom started, and a lot of these great athletes kind of started choosing powerlifting. If you look, someone like in our area is like Natalie Hunter, someone else in our area is Steve Ruffin. If a lot of these people, like she decided she could do like another sport, okay, but she happened to pick powerlifting. She could pull like 440, she could squat over 400 pounds. Um, she just chose powerlifting. So the great athletes are always going to kind of come up on top, in my opinion. The cream, someone like Steve Ruffin, I believe he's got a lacrosse and track and field background, just pulled 880 in training. You can also see some footage of that. So he was going to be my partner for the strength lifting event. So that was going to be like kind of my ace in the hole, if you will. But yeah, there's a lot of great talent. If Larry Wheels chose to do football or chose to do some of these other sports, like I'm sure he would have done great. And if you look at some of the crossover, look at like he hit very close to a world record strict curl. He hit very close to a world record log. So he's just strong. So he's a good strength athlete. And again, I just think that, and I do think that he had a little bit more potential. And now he just got his IFBB Pro card, which you can kind of argue doesn't really take a lot of athleticism, but the athleticism, the fast switch muscle, it's not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt his performance, his propensity to build muscle. It's just the genetics in terms of the shape of his muscle bellies, the smaller waist, those sorts of things, the width in his back. In the powerlifting, a lot of people kind of talk about powerlifting not being, if a lot of times when it comes to your waist and stuff, like there's certain things like your starting point. So like, his waist kind of hurt him in the squat. It's crazy to say like an 870 squat was like his weak lift, but especially when he was 242 and 275 and under, that was kind of a weak point for him. So now having him have a smaller waist has allowed him to get a pro card in classic physique, doing really well. And I'm excited to kind of see like what he does in the future. So I'm real happy for him. So with that being said, I'm trying to balance performance and health. And one of the things I've been kind of thinking a lot about, I've been trying to learn a little bit more about the new training styles, being open-minded. I'm not really a big fan of ultra specific training. I'm not really a big fan of highly specific frequent training. So things like SBD days, like if you think of someone like an Agata Shitko, who's arguably the number one powerlifter in the world right now, pound for pound, given all circumstances. She's kind of known for, doing these like, I guess, like 6+ SBD days a week. But again, if you increase your frequency, you increase your risk. But if you increase your frequency, you increase your rate of exposure. And as long as you can kind of recover from that, you're going to adapt faster. So in theory, the more frequent exposures is going to lead to potentially more adaptations and potentially more kilos on your total. And if nothing else, it's going to really sharpen your skills. But that being said, even with a sumo deadlift and all these things, even with these kind of sinking benches that you're kind of seeing in the IPF, high arch benches and stuff like that, it's still like not an ultra skill movement. If you think it's something if you think of powerlifting on a continuum, a conventional deadlift is going to be kind of somewhere like over here. And then something like, in the realm of strength sports, you're thinking like a clean and jerk, a snatch, something like a shot put, like a spinning shot put. Those things are going to be more skilled, and those are going to require something like a golf swing, for example, is something you're going to probably need to practice on very close to like a daily basis in order to kind of keep the timing down, keep your skills, sharpen the sword, if you will. So I'm more of a proponent of, if you look at like some of the like Colton Engelbrecht's coach and stuff like that, where it starts skewing a little bit more toward favoring higher effort, higher intensity, so closer to failure for most of your working sets, having error on the side of having a lower amount of working sets, a lower amount of frequency, and then you can kind of accumulate your volume, your muscle building training, and then spending a lot of your time doing more general training, which is kind of something I kind of picked up from Louis Simmons and stuff. He always talked about 80% of your training is going to be special exercises. And I think that as you get older, as you get bigger, as you get stronger, as you accumulate more mileage on you, a bigger chunk of the pie is going to have to be devoted towards, improving, maintaining your mobility, maintaining your joint integrity, building muscle, reducing body fat, targeting weak areas. If you kind of increase the strength of the individual parts, the sum of the parts is going to the whole is going to be the sum of its parts. So if each individual part is stronger, you're going to have a bigger, more efficient kind of engine, if you will. And then, of course, the software has got to be kind of clicking. So that's kind of where the nervous system development, and that's where like kind of when you're in a peaking phase, doing things like overload, doing things like bands and chains, slingshots, reverse bands, those sorts of things. And I'm always the advocate for trying to kind of mimic the full range of motion when you're doing an overload versus kind of doing partial range of motion and things of that nature. But those have their place as well. So that way you're kind of rehearsing the skill, but you're kind of keeping the body fresh, kind of going, or at least as fresh as you can. So in terms of my own training, at the time of this recording, I'm about 9 weeks out, 8 to 9 weeks out from Mr. America. I'm going to do a similar format than what I did last time. Essentially, it's kind of like a bastardized kind of push-pull legs style routine, because my secondary goal is improving my body composition, getting my lower back a little healthier again, keeping my shoulders healthy. So the only kind of difference with the push-pull legs split, traditionally, you're going to kind of hit each body part / muscle group / movement pattern around, twice per week. So I'm going to do some compound exercises in my training, but now things like squats and deadlifts and presses are going to be more accessory movements. They're not going to be kind of the meat and potatoes. So what I was kind of getting back at before, I think that one of the things that if you look at a lot of athletes, so if you think at like a wrestler, for example, um, probably the best wrestlers are spending the most time on the mat. They're not spending, and this was the case for me. Like I spent a lot of time in the mat, but I probably spent a disproportionate amount of time in the weight room because that was what I enjoyed, and I did feel like a benefit. But it probably got to the point like when I was trap bar deadlifting 600 pounds, but I wasn't able to like really be as efficient with like my double leg takedowns and things like that, drop steps, penetration steps, especially as I got closer to the competition season. Um, one of my biggest issues, like my senior year, I kind of tore my hamstring because I wasn't kind of prepared to get into 100% sprinting for my first football practice, and I ended up having to compete on one leg. But anyways, the point is, I think that we can take a lot, and as I always kind of consider myself a strength coach first. This might be a whole other episode, but I'm a strength coach who happens to coach powerlifters. I have the wrestling background, I have the football background, I have the strength and conditioning background, so I kind of see things from like a different lens. So when you're doing like singles, doubles, and triples with a straight bar, especially with high intensity, with high effort, with competition commands, that's going to be more of like your sport practice. And I think that the broccoli haired kids, a lot of these IPF lifters, a lot of these USAPL lifters, they do a really good job with their sport practice. Um, Doing singles on an SBD day, with adequate rest, spending several hours, that's going to be ultra specific, right? Um, if you are, doing doubles or triples, it's a little bit less specific. If you are doing lower intensity, it's going to be a little bit less specific. But generally, if you're doing the competition lifts more often, that's going to lead to better results in terms of your skill. So I believe a lot of these younger kids are extremely skillful, but the issue is that these lifts are not ultra technical. And the other real issue is that the amount of fatigue you accumulate because of the spinal load and the effort required is going to be disproportionate if you were like just kind of practicing even something like a shot put. I don't think, again, I'm not like super familiar with throwing. My buddy Matt Ellis might have better insight. You're probably not going to throw, either an overweight or you're not going to throw your competition weight shot put like every single day for high effort. Usain Bolt is certainly not going to sprint at 100% multiple days a week. So again, if you increase your frequency, you're probably gonna have to lower the intensity a bit, and then you start to get less specific anyway. So where your effort can like, and the other thing is that you're gonna have more overuse injuries. The more specific and frequent your training is with the higher intensity, you're gonna increase your risk. So if you look at something like jogging and running, there's a really high incidence of injuries. They may not be catastrophic, but because of the repetitive and cyclical nature of that particular activity. So something like powerlifting, that's why advocating for a lower amount of frequency, a lower amount of overall sets, you're going to kind of keep the mileage low. And if you use something like a West Side system, or you're just having and the West Side system doesn't necessarily mean bands and chains. West Side style training doesn't necessarily mean that you're using specialty bars, but just rotating the modality, potentially sometimes, adjusting the tempo, adjusting your grip, it could be, changing bars and stuff like that. And I do think the use of chains, especially to kind of unload yourself in the most vulnerable position, is going to be very, very important. So just some things to consider. But if you look at something like the most specific, the most extreme system of frequency with intensity would be the Bulgarian weightlifting system. And it's pretty like, and again, powerlifting is relatively newer in terms of like the raw, how it's kind of done now in like this raw kind of drug tested combo rack, straight bar, stiff bar format. But if you look at the Bulgarian system, like again, if you have a big talent pool and whoever survives is going to do really well. And I just don't think, again, for me, like as someone that does coaching as their profession, and again, it's just a lot different if athletes are kind of just given to you and you don't really care about the health or well-being of the athlete. I shouldn't say if health or well-being of the athlete is kind of much lower priority, you're going to probably take more risks. If there's more on the line in terms of like if you need to kind of make a paycheck or whatever, if you're more incentivized to kind of get gold medals and stuff, you're going to probably push the envelope a little bit more. So So in terms of like the Bulgarian system, they would essentially work up to a daily max in the squat, high bar back squat, the clean and jerk, and the snatch. And not necessarily in that order, but those would be kind of their main movements. And sometimes they might even come in for a second session. If you look at like someone like Max Saida, who's got some experience in powerlifting as well as weightlifting, high level weightlifting coach, good resource if you're kind of interested in those sorts of things. I think that at a certain point he would just leave like I don't know, like 125 kilos on the bar, or maybe it might have been 200 kilos. I forget, like because it was just like kind of like we're just gonna kind of get into it. So he reaped a lot of benefit to a certain point, and then it kind of like plateaued. But there was a lot of people, he said, that would start to kind of get injured and kind of banged up under that system. So I think that we're going to kind of see the same thing. I just don't think we're going to see like the longevity. So I think that what you're essentially doing is you're kind of shortening the life cycle of the lifter when you do this high frequency approach. So you're going to see a lot more people peak out, maybe when they're, I'd say between 25 and 28 with that style of training, as opposed to maybe like hitting their competition peak more like 32, 34, 35. And again, if you look at someone like a Jen Thompson, a Kim Walford, who's done really well up into their 40s and 50s. I know Kim is a little bit younger than Jen, but Jen's still kind of kicking. She's still doing really well. Um, so if you look at her approach, is a little bit like less frequency. Well, quite a bit less frequency than her like younger counterparts, and she's still able to kind of hang, which is again, I think old. I think that she's someone to look up to. I think she's probably, if I had to pick like most impressive powerlifter, to me that's a lot more impressive than. And again, I love Martin. Someone like Martin who's able to kind of deadlift 800 pounds. Again, our system kind of helped him. Of course, I was able to kind of guide him to peak properly and all these different things. But ultimately, a lot of that's just, whatever you believe, God-given talent. That was kind of something he was born with. And we were able to kind of give him, develop a plan that, again, having knowledge of working with all-time world records before, having worked with people who have deadlifted 800 pounds before, total 2,000 pounds raw before, we kind of have a system that could work for someone like that, right? And then we kind of just adapt and tweak the system over time based on the individual. But it wasn't an SBD day like for, he wouldn't be able to recover from something like that because the absolute poundage is just too great. So in terms of how I'm going to be approaching my training moving forward, and I also I'm looking in, in the social aspect. I'm also looking at like, okay, I need to also kind of be the example. I need to lead from the front. I need to kind of push my team, even if I'm not, pushing my bench, squat, and deadlift right now. So my bench and squat and my deadlift are going to be more general training for me, and my sport practice is going to be more my strict curl. So I'm going to train strict curl. I'm going to again try for the higher frequency approach because it's a lower absolute load, minimal slash to no spinal loading, and there'll be two days that'll be kind of dedicated to more competition style training, and one day with more special exercises. And special exercises for me means seated curls and preacher curls. So I'm kind of working the bottom half as well as kind of like the top half of the lift. Um, and it may kind of seem counterintuitive, but I kind of actually believe, even though the seated curl is a partial range of motion, since you're kind of at a dead stop and you kind of take your leg drive out of it, the seated curl is going to really help kind of your transition and your start. And then the preacher curl is going to allow you to kind of, potentially save the rep if you kind of get in a bad position. So mechanically, it's going to be harder, if you're in a stretch position, but it's going to kind of help transfer over to the lockout in my opinion, for the strict curl. I'm going to do one day with chains, which is going to be more working on form and force production. So kind of, and anywhere from, 5 sets of 5 to 6 sets of 4 to 8 sets of 3, building volume and working on explosiveness. And then we'll work up on some of those heavier weeks over time. And then we'll have a max effort day, which I'll be kind of cycling through triples, doubles, and singles, kind of like doing these 3-week waves. I'll probably do like a top set and a down set on some weeks. So maybe just really two like true working sets. And then some days I'll do some heavy overload with reverse bands as well. And then as far as the other days, so Monday, Wednesday, Friday is going to be kind of my competition practice, if you will. And then on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday is going to be more of my general training, just kind of spread out throughout the week. So, your squats, your deadlifts, and your pressing movements. I will kind of keep overhead pressing in the routine because I do feel the front delt strength is important. And I'll probably either do inclines or reverse grip bench on one of those days as well. But competition bench press is going to be on the back burner. Certainly equipped powerlifting is going to be on the back burner. I'm not sure if I'm going to be doing sumo or conventional deadlifts or some combination. I'll probably have a little bit more variety in my powerlifting training just for more fun sake. But I'm going to kind of cycle through those as well. Like I'll do like a top set of maybe top set of five, down set of eight, top set of three, down sets of five, top set of one, down set of 3 to 5, something like that, just for the heavier compound movements because I also want to cut the neurological benefits for that. So, but anyways, that's just kind of like what's to come. So, Mr. America's also happens to be will be my 1 year anniversary for my marriage, which is amazing. So, we're going to try to get some cake as well after the weigh-ins. See how that goes. We just want to have a fun weekend. It's going to be at the Mr. America contest. The Mr. America contest is also very special to me because in 2020 I did my first bodybuilding show, which was a huge accomplishment. You know, going from 340 pounds to 198 pounds stage lean. So I did kind of I mentioned before I did kind of gain a lot of weight back from from my sugar diet, but I'm going to still kind of implement kind of lower carbs, higher carbs, lower fats. So I'm going to, again, higher carb, lower fat diet, start to kind of ramp the protein back up because I felt like I was starting to kind of lose it. So I think the sugar diet was a useful tool to do in the short term. And right now I'm still kind of like front loading more simple sugars and carbs and just fruit in general earlier in the day. And I'm having more of my meat and starches later at night. So still kind of playing around with the diet a little bit. I'll probably consult with Mark Smelly Bell a little bit to kind of see like how he's adapting the plan. But just kind of seeing how like the lower fat approach works for me. And I'm going to get my blood work done later in the year and hopefully kind of alleviate some of the health issues and stuff. And I think a lot of these health issues will start to kind of rectify themselves as I lose some weight, as I hopefully try to get a little bit stressed, kind of down. But yeah, so that's basically it. So again, we got a bunch of things coming up. September, we have our next full powerlifting meet at Gaglione Strength HQ. Then we have Bench for Boobs in October. And then December will be our RPS Nationals Mid-Atlantic qualifier, the festive face-off on December 6th. So, but Mr. America will be in October. So right now I'm going to go full steam ahead for Mr. America. I hope this kind of gave you some insight. If the podcast helped you, please give it a 5-star review. Please check out the links below if you want to support our page. Thank you so much. Until next time, stay strong, and we'll see you soon.